Welcome to the CEN show, a platform where we learn from the world community. I'm your host, Rashaki Maskani, and on the panel this evening, we have Professor Rahh, we have Brother Rahh. And this evening of our guest, I met him at the gym playing a little basketball, and we got to talking, and I told him about the platform that we have and the podcast and all of that. And I asked him would he like to be a guest, and he said yes. So he's here. This brother is Brother Darryl Brooks, and he's a licensed clinical social worker. And so, Darryl, thanks for coming and joining us this evening.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then also you can start your presentation.
All right. So thank you guys for having me. My name is Darryl Brooks. I'm a licensed therapist. I originally was licensed in Georgia. Me and my wife moved here, last year? So mainly my practice is based out of Georgia. And we cover the states of Georgia, Virginia, and Florida. And a little bit about myself. I attended Fort Valley State University. Undergrad, graduate, I attended Clark Atlanta University. I did a lot of my, guess you would call residency work or supervisionary work in the state of North Carolina. And that's, if you want to see more of my information, I could put it in the chat. You can see my bio. I've done pretty much every other type of work you can think of: government, corporate, politics, everything. But the main focus now is my practice is the name of it is Viaduct Health. We're a telehealth-based practice. We're we do about 200 plus sessions a month, so it's running pretty well. And at this point in my career, I've talked to over thousands of people, literally, factually. So I have a good amount of experience in terms of talking on the topic of mental health. Also, I have a nonprofit by the name of Forever Felton, and we help seniors or individuals that's disabled, ages 55 and up, but the better term is aging, not necessarily seniors. And we assist them with workforce training, housing preservation, and wellness, mental health and wellness, and food scarcity. So that's the nonprofit I have as well. That's based in Georgia as well. I am going to eventually do something in California with the homeless population here. I think I have a grant that I'll probably be looking at, but that's what we do also in the state of Georgia. So that's a little bit about myself professionally.
Excellent.
Other than that, personally, like you said, we play hoops. I've traveled to 48 states. So far, I've been over to like 350 plus cities and towns, overnight stayed and traveled. So I've traveled all over the US pretty much. And I am married for 8 years, and I do have a child on the way. So my wife is pregnant, so I'll soon be a father. And that's that.
Excellent, excellent. Now, how old are you?
35.
Excellent. That's good. We want to get more young blood on here, so that's good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. So let's get into the topic this evening, which is mental health and men's wellness. So tell us what you want us to know about that.
All right. So really, on here, so I guess what I'll do is just because you said there'd be maybe some questions or something, but I'll just start with what I thought to be. So over this topic, I do different speaking engagements and things like that. So I went to my assistant and I told her to draft up. I have AI bots that work for my company, and I told them to draft up something, not this presentation, but draft up ideas about mental health that are current that men want to know about right now to this day. So the topic that they stated is the most relevant right now is relationships and emotional health, meaning how to heal from absent fathers, how to deal with relationship communication, how to deal with emotional intimacy, how to deal with rejection, and how to deal with how to have a safe space with other men. So that was the number one topic according to research. So that's why I chose that. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about, and so what I'm probably going to end up doing is 5 areas. I'm gonna go through one area. I'm not going to talk super long. And then once I get done with that area, I'm going to answer any questions or whatever and kind of go from there. All right. So the first topic is healing from father wounds and absent father figures. This is a big topic in therapy, especially when you have fathers that are not legitimized. Now, I know California is a little bit different from Georgia, because in Georgia, you have to be legitimized in order to kind of have rights over your child, not necessarily that they're your child. In California, I don't really know. Is that in California? Is that
Okay, explain what legitimized means.
Oh, legitimization means that you have it's either you're signing a birth certificate or you're claiming the rights over that child to say that this is my child. And typically, if you're married in Georgia, you're automatically legitimized and you have rights over your child, even if they're not your biological child. If you're married, every child that comes to that marriage, you have rights over. If you're not married, that child is unlegitimized, and therefore you have to go to the state and declare that you want this child to be under your banner in a sense, and you have to authorize that you want this child to be your child. So in Georgia, the child is not automatically just your child if you're not married. You have to have paperwork if you're the male.
Okay.
In California, I just moved here. I don't know the laws around that, but is that something that's happening here, or you kind of just
I wouldn't know
okay?
about that. Yeah.
All right, but that particular subject is big, and at least with men. So the first thing that we look at with absent fathers, there was some quick research that talked about that in terms of having absent fathers. Back in 2023, over 40% of fathers lived apart from the child. It doesn't mean that they were not in their child's life, but lived apart. And some of that deals when the father's absent, we know that children end up having more aggression, they're depressed more, lower self-esteem, especially in young men, because they don't have a masculine presence. Young ladies, you see more being promiscuous. You see issues with confidence, all the negative things. Does that mean you're going to automatically be there if you don't have a father? No, but we're just talking about what predominantly happens. Also, there's some stats that show if you have a father in the home and you have a married couple, they have the same statistical outcomes in terms of academic achievement, childhood pregnancy, reduced childhood pregnancy, and just overall better health and well-being. So that goes to show you that fathers in the home are extremely important. The other thing that I wanted to focus on, so I want to discuss this in 2 pathways. One is the father side that impacts fathers from being home, and the other one is the child. And then we'll kind of talk so that way I'm not just over talking. So with the father, one of the and I'm just going to relate to the biggest things that I've noticed trend wise with other therapists, and we'll just say things that I've noticed in practice over the years, probably over the last 2 years, and I've been in practice 7 years, and that is fathers have issues with being away from the home because of deterrence and issues with the child's mother. So a co-parent agreement usually isn't established. So some form of a mediation agreement, a custody agreement, some agreement is not established because number one, some families, especially if it's a minority family, they don't want the government involved in their saying with their children or money or anything. So that is the top 3 things, like on the top 3 scale, not having the government involved in the saying. And so that person may believe if I do an agreement, if I do mediation, if I do child support, that's involving the government. In actuality, it creates more structure. So, and because what ends up happening is if one person decides I have a new partner, or I don't want to have I don't want you to have access to your child anymore, or whatever the case, now you're dealing with a couple of months to a few years of back and forth about custody. And that back and forth creates a scenario where the father may not be in the home because now they are feeling like this is not worth me going back and forth with the mother in order just to have a relationship with my child, which I do love my child, but I don't have the emotional capacity to get through life and deal with this back and forth. So that is a top 3 reason why some men are not in the home in terms of the a negative co-parenting experience. So some other reasons could be value. Some men that were never actually taught how to be man and taught how to be masculine and taught how to have structure may feel like they have no value, and they may feel that they made a mistake by having children, and they feel like the best thing they could do is to stay away. And not in a sense of like I don't care about my child, but like, well, maybe since I'm not I don't have the emotional capacity to build up myself or work on myself, I don't know where to start. Maybe the mother, if she's decent, I'll just give her a shot at it and we'll kind of see what happens. I'm not saying this is for every family, but I'm saying that when a man does not have a sense of value, he have a sense of embarrassment. And as a result, he may try to shy away or avoid from trying to be in that child's life, which is what we call the hidden self issue. Um, another thing I want to add on the father side, lack of empathy. What I mean by that is that person may grow up in a house where empathy was not as much, and we know that previous generations displayed less empathy because mental health wasn't really supported. Now they still did family reunions, they still did um, get-togethers and dinners, so there was some empathy. It was more of a family unit. That is something that was more of. But in terms of being in tune or being what we call the 5 A's, which is a whole other concept I won't get into right now, um, but more so because of that lack of empathy, that father may feel that, well, I made it on my own, or I didn't have my father, and I think they have enough to make it, so they should be fine. And that is because that person is thinking about their experience and saying, well, I turned out decent and I didn't have my father, so it can't be that bad, you know. And we all know that's the incorrect way of thinking, but some people have those thoughts. The other thing I want to just say is sometimes sometimes when we have fathers, their reward systems about what they like and love overshadows their ability to have structure and order, which means if they love alcohol, they love women, if they love drugs, they love porn, if they love gambling, if they love the streets, whatever they love, whatever reaches their high reward system, if they don't have the impulse control to address those things, it's going to supersede their need to want to have structure because they feel that structure plus the things that I'm doing don't match and I have to choose. So those are the top things on the father side. And one more other thing, embarrassment, which is once a father has been away from the home for, we'll say, at least more than a year and they have no contact with a child, they may feel like, well, I feel embarrassed to address my child because now what am I going to say to my child about me leaving? Like, I'm saying I'm sorry, or especially if it's been over 5 years, that person feels like I don't even know what to say to them. I'd rather just leave them alone. When they turn 18, they can come just reach out to me because I don't have the words to say, I know I was wrong. And especially if that child is angry with you and they're like, why you don't care about me? Why you don't love me? Why you not come to see me? And you don't really have a valid answer because usually it's not much of one all the time or some of the times. Um, so that person is embarrassed and they just figure when they get them a little bit more mature and they get older, they can just come to me and we can try then. Because right now I don't have the bandwidth to explain things to them about what's happening, and maintain my own emotional regulation. So that's the father side, and I'm gonna start right there. But any questions or any
Let
responses?
me let me
Yeah,
go to the panel.
yeah,
Very interesting what you said, and I can kind of identify with most of it
yeah.
because I've investigated. I've been a part of some of it. I had two sets of kids, so I understand. A lot of the entanglements that you go through, and then and I wasn't one of those fathers that wanted to be away from my children, but I found it necessary at certain points. So let's go to Ahi.
Yes.
Any question or comment on that, or those things?
Brother, like you said, it hits home for me. And I'll pass.
What's that?
And that's all I have to say about that. And I'll pass on this.
Okay. All right, Professor Rahh, question or comment?
First of all, glad to have you on the show, Darryl.
Thank you.
You got an interesting profession as a social worker and therapist. That's two different things.
They're basically the same, but they sometimes they could be different if you're not at the highest level. But in my situation, I'm both, but they can be separate depending on your education level.
Well, I mean, how do you treat them?
And the only quick thing I'll say about it is a social worker is more macro and community centered. And when you become a therapist, that's more towards the license portion, and you're not focused on direct or micro, which is,
Let me put it this way.
yeah.
Do you work for social services or do you have your own practice?
I have my own practice.
For both.
I don't work for social services. I did at one. I used to work for the state of Georgia, but I have my own practice for the last 4 years.
Okay, so how do you get your clients?
Typically word of mouth, insurance, social media. Um, yeah, any way they kind of flow through. But I'm insured with about 20 more insurance companies, and I've been doing this for the last 4 years. So, and then through social media, I get about 120,000 views on all 120 to 170,000 views on all platforms. So they trickle in, and I stay pretty booked.
Now, what I'm saying is that when a person is seeking your help,
Yeah.
they are voluntarily seeking your help.
Typically a person comes to me when they have a problem. That's two reasons they'll come. Person may come to solve a problem, to have maintenance, which is stay abreast on the routines that they've already worked towards to fix a problem that they already had. And the last thing may be perspective, which is more of a coaching style. But it's probably more than that. But those are the main three reasons that a person would come to me.
And so when you say they got insurance, what are you talking about? Medicaid or
Yeah,
Medicare?
I do accept Medicaid in the state of Georgia. I don't in the state of California, but yeah, I do accept Medicaid. Most of my patients are most of them are middle, like working class, uh, middle class or upper class, because of that's kind of how I mean, when I first started my career, most of it was some of it was medicated because that's all you could see. But as I got built up my career, for I do a telehealth practice, and one of the biggest things that I noticed in COVID was busy professionals were trying to take care of their families and they just couldn't get therapy because they didn't have the time. So my practice is centered around working professionals that don't have time to seek therapy, so that I make a pathway for them to have therapy.
No. So these are people that want to get with their kids and reunite with their kids.
Typically, when somebody comes to me, they want to be around there with their kids. I don't. Other therapists may work with like court order individuals or domestic violence or whatever the case. But most of the patients that I deal with right now, they want to be with their children. But in the past, I have worked with individuals that have a court order or they whatever, and their desire to want to be connected to their children or to want to get things right was 50-50. So I dealt with all populations in terms of this
So
idea.
do you call the kid in and the mother in when you dealing with the father?
Oh, you mean like family therapy?
He froze.
You mean like family therapy?
He froze for a moment. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's from.
Okay.
oh, there, Professor Rahh.
All right. Well, what I can do is I could just go over to the childhood part and then you can kind of keep going.
I think he's back.
He's
Professor
back?
Rahh,
Yeah.
All right.
did you hear him, Professor Rahh?
What do you say?
Go ahead. Repeat what you said, Darryl.
You were saying that do I have everybody in the room? And I was saying that I don't. You're talking about family therapy. I can do family therapy, but usually, for the most part, the bulk of my clients are couples, individuals. I will do family therapy, but as of the last year, the demand has been higher for individual and couples. So I've been doing that a little bit more.
Is it a suggestion that men that are not with their kids have mental problems?
Uh, I wouldn't say they automatically are, but I will say that it depends on the reason to why. But as we look at the 40+%, it's a lot of it's many different reasons to why it's not the case. But if you want to take my uh qualitative opinion, which is what I've done, and not the and if you want to take my qualitative opinion, a lot of things that I've noticed is men typically have issues with emotional regulation and really just knowing what to do as a father. A big thing that I noticed that we'll say 70 more percent of the men that I've come in contact with, which is at this point been thousands, um, they don't really actually know what to do as a father. Like,
They don't know how to be a daddy?
no, most men do not know how to. They know what they were taught, they know what was passed down, and they know what they saw from other men, but they never been taught actual real structure. They're kind of just doing what they saw.
Have you ever ran into a case where you think that father needs to stay away from the kid?
Yeah, I ran into I've been in a scenario where abuse where it was abundant, and the best thing is for that father to kind of work on themselves before being in that child's life. So there are some cases where a person can be so what they call it conduct disorder or intermittent explosive disorder. Those individuals that have not worked on those things don't need to be reunited until they can get those things together. And so when we start talking about Department of Human Services, they have people to monitor that.
And see, there are many daddies that sometimes don't believe the child is dead, and and that's why they stay away. And then they don't want to deal with the child support because the child support is a doozy. If you've been away and you got to pay that back child support, um, by saying you are the daddy and you just been away and you haven't paid it, but are these daddies, you say they're middle class, most of them, right? Working class?
that I deal with. Yes.
Yeah. So you have a screen on who you take?
No, I don't discriminate or anything like that. That's just who seeks me out.
Okay. And so, but at the same time, when you have fathers that question the mother's claim that he's the daddy, have you had them type cases?
Well, I mean, in any situation where you're not sure that's your child, we're looking at blood tests. We're not going to ever go with the guessing. I'm not ever going to advise someone to treat them and then guess whether their child is there. We need to know. So that's going to be the first thing. If they say, well, I don't want to know because it is my child, I don't have the money, that's about accountability.
Have you ran across a case where the mother said, look, I don't want you in my child's life. I'll take care of the baby, and I won't even ask you for child support. She's a professional woman. She got enough money. She just wants to have a child.
I mean, that happens all the time. I mean, that happens all the time. But a lot of times it's not about that she's saying, I don't want you to do this. It's about, if you have a child, what are the rights? If you have the rights, you fight to have co-parent agreement with your child. If you don't have the rights, then you're at the mercy of another person's mindset about what they want until you get your rights. And that's just what that is.
But that's a court decision, right?
Yeah, that's going to be decided by the court. Or if you want to have a formal agreement personally, but if a person doesn't really want to work with you, then you want a judge involved, because then it'll be a little bit more serious.
Now, you had mentioned that sometimes fathers love other things rather than the child. Drugs, alcohol, or getting caught up in a lifestyle that,
Yeah.
for instance, what is the most egregious case you've had?
Egregious. I'll just go with, so instead of me speaking on my cases, I'll just say something that I witnessed, I've observed in the field. So I won't really say I won't say this is my case. I'll just say I've observed this while doing this work. When you say egregious, you're saying what when you say egregious, what are you trying to?
Let's say that there's a serious dispute with the mother, and that the father, for whatever reason, threatens the mother or threatens the kid if she don't let him see him, if she still fighting, there's mothers that will fight. They don't want the man involved at all.
Yeah, that happens a lot. You have a lot of times where you have mothers that may say, hey, I don't think you're a best fit, or I don't really care for you, or I don't think we have a good parenting arrangement, and they want that person away, or they, whatever the case. That happens a lot. But again, the only thing that I've seen that often pops up as a trend is if you don't have an agreement, mothers move into another country, move into another state, and they're just leaving, and then you have to deal with that back and forth. That's the most that I usually see dealing with patients, just moving. In terms of something drastic, I wouldn't say that there's like overly drastic things, but mainly it's just when you're dealing with distance. Distance is the biggest killer of relationships, especially when you're dealing with children. And think about it: if you have a long distance relationship with a woman or your lady, that's a problem. Just imagine your child that needs you, and you have a long distance relationship. So long distance relationships are what impacts um, fatherhood, and also co-parenting the most.
Mhm. I'll come back, Rashaki.
Okay. All right. So you want to move to the children aspect of it?
Yeah, the real quick thing I want to say about the children aspect is one of the things I think I talked a little bit about how children are impacted, but um when fathers are not in the home as a result of this, you start to see um the absence of wanting to follow home structure. You see what we call crash shop behavior, which is a big thing that is talked about lately on social media. And then you see heavy acceptance from peers. And so that's why you see people join gangs, different things like that. Now people are not really joining your traditional gangs. They're usually joining like neighborhood gangs, and they're calling them whatever they call them, and then they're doing petty crimes that way. Um, not every group, not every gang does criminal activity, but yeah. But anyway, I wanted to add that child part because the home structure determines how that child is going to have their expression. So when you see a child say they're fighting at school, they ran away from home, they did whatever, that's them trying to have expression about what's happening around them. And they feel like the way that I can get away from all this is if I just leave. Or the way I can just release my anger is I fight this person, I feel better. So you start seeing oppositional defiant behavior. And if they're going extreme, you start to see conduct disorder. And they start to introduce themselves into crime. But home structure, the lack of wanting to accept home structure is the first thing you'll notice. Um, the other thing would be the crash out behavior, which is not caring about life, being willing to do whatever or to die for no risk, no reward, and acceptance from peers, which is one of the 5 A's that you get from your parents. You make acceptance from your peers, which is a social developmental benchmark, by the way. Like that's something they should be kind of doing in a sense, but when it's negative, they're still willing to do it. So you have acceptance that you don't learn from your parents, that you're trying to interpret and master out in your peers. And your peers should not be the first place that you learn acceptance. It should be learned first in the household. So that's the quick thing I want to say about the children, how they're impacted from this. Of course, we all know they're impacted by it. They're not getting properly trained on how to be a man. They're not, or how to be treated by men if they're a young lady, little girl. But typically, the children are impacted due to the lack of home structure. And when you have a lack of home structure, it really just breeds everything else. If you look at any of the crime, any of the opposition to behavior in the school, any of the misunderstandings regarding wellness and health among children, it's just due to a lack of home structure. And typically men, I'm not saying men are the only ones that can do it, but they typically are the ones that spearhead that idea. And that's why we have those statistical outcomes that I talked about before. So when you don't have a male in the house or a man in the house in these particular types of homes, you will see um, a decrease in everything. It's almost like having, and I'll give an analogy. I don't want to analogize children and and mammals or pets, but just imagine having any pet and you never train them. And we all know that pets need structure and they can be a asset to your family and all those things. Never giving them structure and expecting them to have good outcomes as they matriculate through life. If you have a pet or a dog or whatever you have, usually it's dogs, and you don't give them any structure, you're going to have a scenario where that dog is going to probably get in mischievous behavior in around your neighborhood, or they're going to tear up your stuff, and they're going to be a problem. So structure is needed throughout life, especially for children. But I gave that dog analogy because that's not even human. And without the structure, you see the problem. And think about households that have structure with their pets and how they behave and how they turn out. They live longer. They do better. So structure is extremely important. Anyway, before I move to something else, any questions about the child piece?
All right, Brother Ahi, anything about the children?
Yes, brother. I mean, just earlier you struck on a note with me, and it was very personal, and I never heard it articulated like that. Uh, and it was simple and to the point, and your whole message is like that. Because I am one of those fathers. I wanted to be more active in my children's lives. Um, my children's mother is one of those women, Howard educated, um, financially stable, um, and it was a issue where she was in it. Something, and this kind of personal, but I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
With me, I wasn't the main kind of person. I was kind of like the fall off guy. And I know she loved me and everything, but she was like for control. She didn't need a man. It was at that particular point. It was about um, give me the semen and give me um, the money for child support, and I ended up in that kind of situation. And I had the type of position where I had to travel to make my money, and the place where we met, she moved, and they moved 1,000 miles away, and it made it kind of difficult to parent as a father, and found myself kind of trying to compensate through material things, money, uh, and then when I had the chance to parent, instead of being able to work it through and find my way as a father, and them uh, having a clear idea of them as my child. As every new parent has to do, you have to work your way through it and develop that relationship with your child and work through it.
Yeah.
And there was always interruption. I couldn't establish that type of relationship without interference uh, coming between my child and I, establishing our relationship as a father and sons.
Hmm.
And so it's a personal thing, and I understand exactly what you were saying. And even now, I'm uh, in my later years, it's very personal because it still stays and it has established itself in our relationship with my sons now. And
Hmm.
so, young parents, fathers especially, who don't have allies, and some folk who can put it in simple terms to them about what they're going through, and that they're not alone, um, and exercise this in the knowledge um, to help them uh, get through it and be better parents, and uh, uh, be more of an asset to their children for the future's sake, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's personal, and you put it in plain terms.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So as I was saying before you kind of told me this here, yeah, distance is a biggest. So, um, well, actually, being that it's not a therapy session, I won't ask more about your personal situation, but yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yes, thanks, Ahi, for being transparent like that.
Yes.
That took a lot, I know.
Yes.
So
So
go ahead. Go ahead, Darryl.
no, you go ahead.
No, I was just gonna see if Professor Rahh, he's muted.
No, I ain't.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So did you want to ask about anything about the children from the children's side?
Well, children have issues for a lot of different reasons. There are a lot of single mothers that can raise strong families. They just get involved and they show more. They get the kids to love them more than they love the streets and love to appreciate them being a mama single and try not to be in trouble and get good grades and go on to college and and move on. The challenge is to me with children is that many of them have different issues, as Darryl was saying. They respond different to their situation, and sometimes they do question why the daddy in their life. And then some say, "I'm glad he's gone. It's just me and you, mom." But at the same time, um, it's about the structure that the mama have at the house. When you try to tell your son at 12 or 13 he's a man child, you know, that he's a shot caller and he's just 12 years old, that could be problematic. But at the same time, you want to do all you can to help them. And it depends on their economic status also. I mean, it's rough when you have to move all the time and there's no stability. You want stability in a child's life. They want to know there's food there and that the house is going to be there. And that there's not going to be a bunch of men coming in and out. And that the mother is well grounded in her faith, grounded in values that he can respect. Because what happens is generally children begin to disrespect their home because they see the home being disrespectful to them.
Yeah.
That'd be a challenge. It depends. And then you have so many young mothers that have an issue with regards to how to deal with life themselves. Babies having babies. And when you 16, 17 and you have a baby, that has a lot to do with how you raise that baby and how you are able to take care of that baby. Or either a grandmama step in or auntie or it just be a lot of issues. So there, how do you respond to that?
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're just talking about how, well, one thing you just stated was how age can impact how a child is like raised. Like, I think that is important. I think that having a child at 17, 18 is going to be a different experience from having a child at 30, and different forms of cooperation, all those things. So the only quick thing I'll say about that is I always tell young parents to definitely go get some type of parenting classes, therapy, get with some mentors, get with a community, try to get as much involvement inside of structured settings early, sports, whatever it is, so that way you can have different examples of what type of different structures you want, and you can adopt and create it yourself. If you don't have if you don't have grandparents or parents that's going to show you exactly what to do. But age does determine that child's experience about how much wisdom can be poured into them at their earlier start part of their age. And we all know that a child's personality is developed by the age of 7. So for the most part, you want that child to get as much of structure, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding and empathy by the age of 7, because once they turn 7, that's who they are for the rest of their life. Now, they can always be better, learn more ideas. They can always change who they are in terms of being a smarter person, having more empathy, but personality wise, that person usually is that way for the rest of their life. So basically, we are our 7-year-old selves as we age through life, and we just learn to solve problems based on our experience level, but we're still our 7-year-old selves.
That's
How,
interesting. Go ahead, Rahh.
yeah, how you deal with the the aspect of a mother who talks about the daddy so bad that when the daddy tries to get the life, he's already alienated the son or the daughter.
You're saying that the mother has bashed the fathers to the point where the children don't, they almost like resent the father.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can happen a lot. That I always definitely recommend therapy, and if you can't do therapy, then there needs to be a point of contact with the family to have some type of family discussion. Now, does that happen all the time? No, you have two separate households. That person says, "Hey, I'm your mother, I'm your father. I don't want to sit down and talk about nothing. I just want to help raise you up and move forward. I don't want to sit down and talk about nothing with them." Does that
Mm.
happen? Yeah, but if you want to be better about your children, the biggest recommendation is to sit down and say, look, we have our differences, but our goal is to raise you together with a plan and to have you be successful or independent. Because really you're not really raising your children necessarily to be successful. You're raising them to be independent. And hopefully with that independence, they end up being successful.
Yeah.
So with that being said, for households that want to be better, you need that person will want to be aware that working together in unison, having a shared value is going to be better for that child. Households where there's a lot of issues, abuse, emotional trauma, narcissism, all that can happen from the previous partners. You want to be able to sit your child down. At least when you talk to them, you want to say, hey, I understand what you've been told about me, but my goal is to stay in your life and show you who I am. And I want you to judge me about how I treat you more so than what you hear about me. And if
Well,
you,
there, how you deal with you get a girl a baby, she married or dealing with another dude, and
Mhm.
you get involved with your son, and there's some challenges in there.
That's why you have your paperwork and mediation agreement. So mediation and your court agreements. Your court agreements. Now, are you asking, will you be able to absolve yourself from drama? Sometimes you can't. But will you be able to have structure and what is or isn't allowed? Yes. So whatever you want to happen, you put it in writing. Whatever you don't want to happen, I'm sorry,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you don't want to happen, put it in writing. Whatever you want to happen, you put it in writing, and you find a way to get agreements on it. And if it's not in that agreement, the way you can and can't do it is all open game. So that's what I was going to saying about the whole government piece. In this situation where you don't have a person working with you, you have to get someone else involved, or not, you're going to have some issues because they've already decided they don't want to work with you, especially if that person is upset and they want you to behave a certain way to work with them, or they're narcissistic. There could be many reasons. Not every person is narcissistic that doesn't want to work with you. It could be trauma. It could be what transpired. It could be narcissism. It could be many different things. But typically you want to make sure that that paperwork is right, so that way some of those behaviors are curbed instead of like giving to somebody discretion. Because when you give somebody discretion to do whatever they want with no limitations, you're going to get their expression for whatever angry way they feel about you in that relationship.
But it's hard to get contractual arrangements when uh, the mother uh, won't sign it, won't agree to it.
You want to agree to a custody order?
Not well, you were saying that you try to get your paperwork. Are you saying from the court? Or you
Yeah.
saying
You go to the court. Once you get legitimized, you try to push for 50-50 custody if you can. And during that 50-50 custody, you talk with your lawyer or you talk with whoever you're going to have to deal with, usually a lawyer, and you try to fight for the structure and the rights you want to see and the structure you want with your child. And you could try to fuss with the mother or their relationship because you can't do it on your own.
do you do court appearances with with your clients?
Typically that's only in rare cases. Yeah, I have, but typically that's not what's necessary, but I can in rare cases.
Well, I'm talking about if you doing therapy and you find that the mother's just being uncooperative.
I mean, typically a therapist will come for that. Usually it'd be like some show up. But if you're not subpoenaed, it's usually not necessary.
Okay, Rashaki.
All right. You know, Darryl,
Rashaki?
yeah, you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you said something very interesting because throughout the years, I do, I'm always observing people. And you said something about, you have your personality at 7 and that's it. That's the person you're gonna be as far as personality.
Yeah.
But what I notice is, and I notice it about myself. Uh, Most people seem to be, well, a lot of people. I can't put a percentage on it, but I know it's a high percentage. Most people seem to be immature and they act childlike. And all you have to do is go in public and see how many people that are so inconsiderate and don't really consider who's around. And you mentioned narcissism. I mean, it's just these are childlike behaviors. And I found myself acting a little childlike the other day and I had to catch myself. So I think we're living, I mean, it's like we're still baby like as far as advancement, if you ask me. And it's due to the type of system we live in too. I think that has a lot to do with it, where we have these people that are so, so many words you could use to describe them, but they're so power and controlling, they power hungry and they want to just control everything and everybody to the point where, you know, people just they don't want people to have things. So it's like their baby like the people that's in control. You look at your president, if you want to call him your president, because I don't want to call him mine, but the president of the United States, he, it's like whatever goes with him, what he wants, and he's gonna go to extreme ways to get it. So that's childlike. So we're dealing in a childlike system. So I just wanted to make that observation because that was interesting when you said that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that most individuals don't have a great emotional vocabulary and they don't have a great sense of emotional regulation. And it's not taught. It should be in school. It should be a mandatory thing, just like civic engagement, just like all those other things. And because it's not there, you have to learn on your own. Just like finances, they don't teach it in school. Not now they may teach you a little bit, but they don't teach finances the way that you should in a capitalistic country. You have to go learn on your own. All the things that's necessary to be truly independent are really not taught as much in at least public schools. You have to go seek it on your own. So I think that at the end of the day, and that's one of the reasons why I became a therapist, is because growing up in South Georgia, we went through a lot of different things, and there was a lot of immature activities. There was a lot of good moments too, but immature activities, a lot of misunderstandings. And now that I'm a therapist and I learned what that was, when I was younger, I didn't know what a therapist was. I didn't find out what a therapist was until I got to college. And like he said about the whole George working for your state, I just thought it was CPS workers. I didn't know the difference. But really, one of the biggest reasons why I became a therapist, because a lot of the issues that we have as people is that we're not as spiritually inclined as we think. And what I mean by that is, yeah, we go to church. Yeah, we have religious beliefs. Yeah, we have some people that write books and have a lot of things, but to be to be in spiritual unison is to be connected and to have mass empathy, collective empathy, to be what they call Afrocentric in your views. And Afrocentric is not about being black or African. It's the mindset by which you adopt and make decisions on your life. So that means that you're making decisions for the we instead of the I. So, yeah, I think that living in this particular country does kind of train you to be individualistic. There's other terms I can use, but I'll just say that individualistic. Um, And because of that, we get conditioned to only kind of like mainly look out for what we want out in public instead of being more Afrocentric. And everyone can be Afrocentric, not just black people or African people. It's again the mindset of the we versus the I. But yeah, it is heavy. And when we talk about fathering, as like I told you, said back to you before, being a father is about committing to. I heard Steve Harvey say something because I watch all kind of like I watch anything that's about learning, growth, wellness, all that. But anyway, Steve Harvey said your father is the only person on this planet, or should be the only person on this planet that typically wants you to be. He's the only man in this world that wants you to actually be better than him. He said other people don't mind you being better than them if you are. They don't actually want it to be the case. Your father is the only person that actually wants you to be better than him by the time he leaves this earth. He wants to know, before I leave this earth, is my son better than me? And if you're better than him, then he felt like he did a great job as a father.
That's called a human advancement, and
Yeah.
hopefully that's occurring. I have that hope for my children and grandchildren all the time, and it's been a challenge, but I'm still there, and it's work. And so when you accept that you have to do certain things, then it's not a problem attempting to do it.
Yeah.
So
But yeah.
excellent. Uh, Brother Ahi, did you want to make a comment or anything?
No, brother, I'm full for the evening. This has been like it's been personal,
Okay.
and I appreciate this brother. So, because he put it plainly, and I feel him because it is personal. So thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, Brother Ahi, for being with us.
And even in your situation, without we'll just go without stretching the idea further than what it is. I'll just say that if any part of that you want to address, and you feel like, so I don't know whether that's something you dealt with or currently dealing with, but if you are dealing with it right now, and you want to figure out, because are your children grown now, or was that in the past?
The past is current because it manifests itself in what is our realities now. It is now. The past never leaves us, which is why we should learn our past so that we can determine what our futures are. So it is what happened in the past manifests itself in our lives now.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, but one of the things I want to add to what you stated before about you had a scenario where you met, connected with someone, they started turning it very operational, like pay me this and all of that, and then they moved. I don't know who they are. I don't know their tendencies. I don't know their objective. I don't know what they wanted from the situation. But I think the main thing is that as long as the children either have a good relationship with you, or they know your intent, because sometimes I have to tell fathers they have to accept that not every father is going to have the best relationship with their child or the relationship they could have had. So what we have to do is accept, not that this is your life, but more so accept that what was my intent for my child. And as long as my intent was always there, as long as my efforts were there with my intent, that is what you kind of settle with in terms of acceptance, instead of viewing it as, I wasn't there or it's my fault. Because a lot of times what we do is we internalize what went wrong because we feel like that's easier to do that. It's easier for me to blame myself than blame what we both did or what they did, because I don't have access to them to blame them. I have access to me. So I can just blame myself, or I can just blame them because of something that I did. And what I mean by that is sometimes you can not have the right discernment about something. I'm not saying it's your situation, but sometimes you can not have the right discernment in the front end, and then the results you may get on the back end, you may try to externalize, but we have to look at ourselves and say, well, what discernment happened that didn't happen from this scenario that caused this to happen? Now, does that take away from the fact you still got to work with someone? No, but I think it does change our mindset about how we feel in terms of causation. Because whoever we think the fault is, that's where our anger leans towards, instead of just having more acceptance. But back to what I was saying about intent, as we get older in age, one of the biggest things I see from individuals when they reach about the age, we'll go 65 or better, which is that it's a big concept. But once you get about that age, if you haven't lived the life that you felt like you should have lived, even though your life still may be good, a person will start feeling resentment. And what that person want to make sure they do is not have resentment off a false sense of like something was done to them in life, but more so, what was my intent and what was my intent throughout my life? And if you can live with all your intent, you can live with all your judgment, the judgments you made, you can live with all the decisions you made, and then either you grew from them or it was your true desire and intent to make that happen. That's what you live with in acceptance, instead of what went wrong. But most people hang around what went wrong, and they never go into their intent, and they end up having that resentment and depression
Thank you,
because they're
brother.
not getting the results from having their child love them or their child speak to them. It's like, your child may not speak to you or address you in a certain way, but my intent is always to love my child, and I've tried to love your child, and the intent is what matters in the end, as for the individual, more so than what's not going right. I don't know if you get what I'm saying about
Thank
it.
you.
That was well
Thank
put.
you. And I appreciate that. And my children, there's no question in their mind, and they be lying to themselves and to the world that they didn't know that I love them.
Yeah.
And a spiritual advisor of mine said, keep the light on. And so the light is on, and they know it is. And I'm not one to know what's happening really now with these younger people and what the deal is. I know that their mother raised them, and I worked on the road
Yeah.
to provide them with the lifestyle that they had. And I tried to compensate it in the wrong ways. And when I tried to correct it, there was an issue because it was the power shift between you and I, my child, developing a relationship. As humans, your daddy, my son, and it was not only interference from the mother, but from the system. So, um, this is, bruh, thank you for coming because it's it known, and you are few that need to develop this in our family, our black family who has come from a both parents household to women raising our children and fathers being secondary. We got them wearing women hairstyles. We got them sensitive where you can't even be direct with your sons, and interruptions not only from the system but from within. And you are putting it out plainly and directly, and it's not don't have to be emotional, but you know it is with those that you study. And I appreciate we need more because women have always had their rights, more rights, even our sisters, than their brothers, the men who raise their children, the children that they want to raise, the men that they attracted to, they not raising them to be attracted to what they were attracted to. And uh, this needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
All right. Before we take our pause for this evening, is there anything else you want to say, Brother Darryl?
Really, I want to thank you guys for inviting me on to talk, to chat about a topic that is pressing, and also for sharing your experiences, and also the questions. I think that this is the topic that, again, needs to be discussed. If any listener or anyone that eventually comes on, and whether you're watching this on YouTube or any type of channel, my link tree will probably be, so if you go look up my name, you can follow me on any social media platform, therapist_D Brooks. And once you go in there, you can look on my link tree. And if you're in the states of Georgia, Virginia, or Florida, you can book a session. If not, you can go on my pages. Any information that you see that helps you out, whatever it is, feel free to review. And if you would like me to do a future podcast, an interview, a course, anything, that's something that could be done as well for schools, for churches, for anything, and speaking engagements. So that's right now, it'll probably be throughout the state of Georgia and California per se for right now. But so that's something I want to add as well. for any future listener that's catching on, that's going to catch on to this on another day. That's not today.
There goes some information right there. That's Instagram. So some people could see that.
Okay.
You have that, and then yeah, they can look you up too. So, well, this was excellent. I would say very enlightening to hear, people coming on that's, our crowd is usually older, so I'm glad that we had a 35-year-old come on and put it down. You did an excellent job there, Darryl, with your information, and very enlightening for me. And of course, we would love to have you back. We could discuss that. And
Most
so
definitely.
I'm gonna say what we have going on next Wednesday. We have Nazir Anayabi Buwali. I don't know how to pronounce his last name real well, but the topic is racist trapped at Lakewood High. So we're gonna find out some things that happened with him at Lakewood High. Looking forward to that. Professor Rod, you get a chance to finalize Tuesday?
Not yet.
Okay.
I
So
will.
hopefully we have that guest, or if not,
Yeah.
Professor Rod will do what he usually do, is enlighten us.
All
So
right.
thanks a lot, Darryl. Thanks a lot, Ahi and Professor Rod. Each one teach one in Conscious Corner. Everybody continue to have a great day.